The main thing as a broker is you have to work with clients that appreciate your time because, what we do where we're primarily focused on national and actually now international clients that are doing, it's always our goal to work with our clients for their, entire portfolio, not just one-off deals. So, we put a lot of time into our projects. We really work for the benefit of our client and looking out for their best interests, and then the fees just sort of follow. We never do anything with a focus on getting the fee. It's just help the clients and the fees will follow.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I am your host, as always, Yona Weiss, and with me today, we have someone very special. That's right. You guessed it. Chuck Littell, all the way out from Southern California, from Colliers International. What is going on, Chuck?
Hey, Yona, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing well. Thank God.
You just really cracked me up right there because I told my daughters last night that I'm going to be on a podcast, and my 12-year-old kept saying, "That's so cringy. That's so cringy." And if she heard that intro, oh my gosh, she wouldn't even be able to hear you finish that sentence. She would. 12-year-olds are embarrassed to see their parents, on camera.
I hear that. Well, it's good. This is gonna air. You're gonna show it to them, and they're gonna be proud of their father for getting out there. So this is something a little bit historic here. I think this is your first podcast.
It is, and I'm a guy who lives on listening to, or I should say, fueled by listening to podcasts, because I spend my weekends, if I have to do anything around the house, I can't get anything done without a podcast in my ear. So here I am participating in the podcast world myself. Pretty exciting.
Well, hopefully this one will be as, at least as valuable as the others you've listened to, trying to give back to our community and share with them some of their knowledge. To give a little context, I mean, you have extensive experience in the real estate industry, specifically in industrial. So it's been 25 years already with Colliers, right?
Yes. Well, you're aging me a smidge. It won't be 25 years in the business, in the industrial world, until I think October or November of this year. So let's not age me any more than absolutely necessary. And actually, it's a little bit over 20 with Colliers. I did start at a different firm in the very beginning, but I've seen Colliers go from, originally we were a locally broker-owned, very old firm. We were called the Sealy Company, and now we're part of Colliers International Corporate based out of Toronto. So I've really seen Colliers go through quite a transformation and been there for the whole ride. It's been quite fun. That's pretty awesome, right? You're riding up the wave. So you have a lot of seniority over a lot of the other people. Yes. Now I get to, now my latest junior partner that joined me was born after I'd been in the business almost 5 years already. So... and he told me his mom is much younger than me, and I went, "Oh wow!" Now I feel older. So anyway, such is life. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on what's going. Because right now, industrial has always been, a important sector in the real estate industry. Obviously, it has taken off over the past few years, and it seems like it's just like exploding and continuing to do so. I mean, what are your thoughts on the expansion that we've seen with industrial, and do you think it's going to continue with this trajectory that's been going on? Well, nothing, it's hard to avoid superlatives sometimes and just always want to be like, what's the greatest I've ever seen? It's absolutely, without a doubt, the craziest market that I've ever seen since I first joined into the industrial real estate world. There definitely, there was obviously a very challenging time on the opposite side of things in '08 that we all witnessed, but still, without a doubt, just sort of keeping up with the market, tracking where rates are, tracking deals. It's really become a challenging job because so many things are changing so fast right now. That's what's really different. It used to be sort of quarterly or take a couple of quarters for rents to go up, and you can, point to some deals that were done and say, oh, things are going up. So maybe, we've gone up another couple of pennies. Now, landlords are seeing opportunities to take advantage of, sort of within a few months, maybe a 10 or 15 cent jump in rents. So, and again, and something to point out is, we here on the West Coast quote everything on a monthly basis. So, if you're going from $1 to $1.10, you're talking about a 10% increase within 90 days. I mean, this is something that's just completely unheard of.
Wow.
So, and in reality, there's parts of the Los Angeles market where rents have gone up 30% since last fall. So it's just unbelievable right now. And tenants are paying because they have no choice. There's no space.
Wow. Is there, continual, what do you see happening just in terms of space? Obviously, you need a lot of these industrial, especially if they are, e-commerce related or logistical related type properties. Proximity is extremely important, right? You need,
yes. Yeah, everything is, there's a huge paradigm shift because for the first 15 years that I was in this business, everybody was constantly trying to reduce their inventories. They were trying to consolidate into, a smaller footprint, fewer locations, because of course, then you have fewer employees and fewer costs. Now everything is about, just like you said, it's about proximity to the customer. So everybody's trying to spread out their footprint so they have much quicker delivery times. And you have to increase your inventory so that you can get the sale. Because if you have a customer that goes online and tries to buy something and it's not available, they'll just go on to the next retailer. So, everything is completely changed in terms of they want more space, they want it closer to the customer, more locations closer to the customer, and larger inventories. The other sort of macroeconomic force that's really pushing rates and making, and creating such strong demand is just all of the supply chain breakdowns that happened during COVID. And now you have things restarting. And so, that's really causing a lot of challenge because there's a huge blockage at the port. So people are trying to get their product in and they're having to maybe order because of the challenges in getting stuff out of the port. Then they're having to order ahead of time and order more stock. So add that to the e-commerce trends that we were just discussing. And then it's sort of it's actually, it's a double whammy that's really hitting the market hard.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people understand you talk about logistics, but the actual logistics, like you're talking about ports and delays. We're ordering products from overseas and trying to get them delivered. And there are delays on these deliveries. And it's somewhat out of our control because there are municipalities, there are governments, there are all kinds of agencies and things like that are literally blocking traffic from allowing these things to come through. And what?
Yeah. Well, and you just have, and it starts all the way at the beginning of the process, right? So I forget exact numbers, but I think it was something like 40 to 45 days for a product to be made in China and the land in the States, and get to stores. And now I think that number is almost tripled because of delays all the way along. Delays in getting empty containers back to China, delays in not having the factory employees, delays in port employees, not enough port employees on the Asian side. Then you also have the same issue on the American side. Then you have, capacity issues with trucking companies. So there's just been a whole breakdown all the way through in the supply chain.
Wow.
That's causing delays. And that's why, I don't know about you, but I've been stunned lately. There's some times where I'll find everything that I want to buy online or in stores. And then there's still just, my favorite laundry spray, I haven't seen at Target in a year. It's still not back. I don't get it. It's funny.
Yeah. No, I hear that. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel of this? What do you think? You're not a psychic, but
no, I know. Well, I think, it used to be that you could, certainly in 2007, there were so many people dancing behind us with red flags saying that, the market was so hyper that there's no way it can continue, and whenever everybody's in starts saying that the market will never go down, guess what? That means the market's about to go down. Mm-hmm. That's all out the window because, that was the kind of conversations that we were having, frankly, 2 and 3 years ago, because we were already into a 5 or 6 year run of such strong demand and rent increases and sale rate increases. So, there's the fact that things are so hyper doesn't necessarily mean that they're just, we're we're towards the end and it's going to die off. There's such a pent up demand. There's very, if you look at the comparison of, the demand versus the amount of product that's being built, there's still a big disconnect. The supply is not, we're region wide. We're in the largest in LA. We're in the largest industrial market in the country, and we're only at 1.2% vacancy. So that's effectively no availabilities because you just have, that the last time I had a client that went out looking for 300,000 square feet, and we in a 1 hour drive radius from the port, we had like 3 options to look at. Wow. Very, very, very low inventory. So could it soften a little bit? Sure, but it would still be a very, very strong market.
Yeah, I hear that. And I mean, obviously there are limitations to how much can be developed and where things can be developed as well. But do you see a lot of continuous new development?
Yes and no. In the infill markets of LA specifically, it's very challenging because it takes a long time to get entitlements. Mm-hmm. So even though demand is spiking right now, it doesn't mean that, a building can be built right away. The typical process is 2 to 3 years from when a property is acquired. By the time, you have to get through cities, and then you have a lot of NIMBYs forces that you're fighting, right? Not in my backyard, that people that don't want new distribution facilities. So it's challenging. There are other places in the country where it's much easier to build, and there's a lot of development going on. And I'm, doing some business in those markets in Dallas and, in other spots around the country. But it is, and I'm working with a client who's building a building in Kentucky. That was a pretty simple process. California, it's a challenge. So
I think everything in California is a challenge when it comes to government.
Yeah. Well, I do some business in New Jersey, and you're in New Jersey, so I think you're about the same.
That's true. There's challenges everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's challenges.
But let's just say Chicago and New Jersey and LA, or California in general. There's some commonality there.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. I mean, you've had a great career thus far. You're going strong, right? You said you brought in a junior partner recently. Are you involved in training new people when they're coming in?
I am. I had a couple of false starts earlier in my career where I was training junior partners and trying to, really get them involved in the business and hopefully, view this as a career, because that's the way it should be viewed. Speaking as a guy that's been in it 25 years.
Yeah.
And I just hadn't really found the right mix. And so I do have a junior partner that's been with me now for 4 years. He's really done well. It's really fun to watch him grow and get better at the job. And I've found that I really like the training process when it works, when my efforts are, making progress. So yeah, I like that part. We just brought on, as I mentioned, another partner. We just finished school, and now, the former trainee is actually doing some training himself, and sort of training him how to train, and it's a fun process.
Very cool. What would you say some of those key factors that you need? Someone, industrial. I mean, in general, being a real estate broker is challenging, I would say, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experience, and I did for a little stint, but I've worked with a lot of brokers across the country, and I find that about 5% of brokers are actually, extremely successful. And
yeah. Well, you might be hitting it a little bit aggressive. I think that, that it's pretty amazing how much the 80-20 rule really applies, I think, in real estate. 20% of the brokers make 80% of the deals, because it's just sort of the cream rises to the top, I suppose, and certain people take it much more seriously. What I decided to do a few years ago when my first junior partner joined is I told him that I'm not going to teach him how to do anything right. I'm going to reverse engineer everything about his training and only tell him about all of the mistakes that I've made over time over the previous 20 years, so that he can avoid them. And if he just avoids the mistakes, the success will follow. And it worked out great. It really did, because there was a lot of, he got the benefit of a lot of lessons that took, some of them took me years to understand. It wasn't as if I just, it wasn't, as if I learned it in the first year. I mean, these were things I'm like, wow, I would do that wrong for so long. You just get sort of stuck in a habit.
Right.
And either it was something that was, a totally failed venture, spending time on the wrong type of opportunities that didn't result, or maybe it was spending too much time on, kind of all the harder transactions that just take up so much of your time and energy, so that, the kind of easier, the lower hanging fruit gets, you don't pay attention to that, those types of things. So it did work well. That's with my junior partner.
Yeah. All right. Can you give me any? I mean, obviously those are great examples. Any other lessons? I mean, doing this for 25 years, you've obviously had great lessons in terms of what not to do. I'd love to hear some of those. Like what should you avoid besides the things you just mentioned?
The main thing as a broker is you have to work with clients that appreciate your time, because what we do, where we're primarily focused on national and actually now international clients that are doing, it's always our goal to work with our clients for their, entire portfolio, not just one-off deals. So, we put a lot of time into our projects. We really work for the benefit of our client and looking out for their best interests, and then the fees just sort of follow. We never do anything with a focus on getting the fee. It's just help the clients and the fees will follow. And so if you don't have clients that are respectful of your time and respectful of our efforts, I should say, then the balance, it's just out of whack. It doesn't work. So you have to have a mutual respect for each other, a mutual respect for their time. I don't waste my clients' time. I don't want them to waste mine. And that, a lot of that does just take experience, so that you can sort of see the signs of what that, what that is. So one thing that I always, point out to my junior partners is watch out when you get nothing but yeses. Because when you're a new guy and you got a guy that's like, yes, 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 can I meet with you? Yes, yes. Do you want to look at, it's not a real opportunity. Real opportunities come with objections and people saying no, and you have to build their trust because their relationship is worth it.
Interesting. I never really thought about that, but I definitely can relate to that now that you bring it up. You point that out. I mean, if you're dealing with people who are just yesing you all the time, don't have objections, it's very difficult to, they're just looking for whatever's going to please them the most. And
well, it's the second half of that comment, and the most important part is the yes, yes, yes times it usually results in a no at the final signing, when the deal becomes real. Whereas the sort of yes, no's, no, then it becomes a yes at the real time, because because the real opportunity, because you've been able to add value and show the client, what the different opportunities are, so that they can make an informed decision. And that's when you get the yes at the end. That's when you make a real estate deal.
Right. Absolutely. And all real estate deals take time, and there's always objections, and there's always negotiations, and there's always, a lot of back and forth. And unfortunately, many deals don't fall through, or do fall through, I should say. And that's just part of the, you do your best to try to get through that and maybe try to bring it back to life as many times as you can. But it's difficult if you're inside of it, if you're dealing with it.
Well, that's the other thing that came with my experience, that I was part of my reverse engineering training with my juniors is I used to get really, when you're younger and you put a lot of effort, you put too much emotion and hope into a specific single transaction, and it doesn't happen, and you're like, wiped out, and it's just, you cannot do that. You have to you can't get married to your deals. You have to just keep moving forward. And now when something fails, I tell them you have to look at it from the optimistic view of, this is great news, because we're no longer going to spend any effort on something that's not meant to happen anyway.
Right.
So the sooner we learn that, the better. Right. So before, I would, when I was young, and make the mistake of not really seeing the signs that it's not going to happen, and you try to keep forcing the square peg in a round hole, and all these sorts of things. So that's what comes with tenure and experience. But these guys are actually kind of getting the benefit of that, because I'm telling them not to do it.
Right. All right. No, all these things, you're absolutely right. A lot of these things just come with experience, and it's amazing that you can be there and be that guide, that shining light, showing them the way. Exactly what to do, what not to do. That's incredible. I do want to switch gears a little bit. Just, I'm curious about, obviously, with your experience in the industrial market, do you see anything like, obviously e-commerce is huge right now, but are there any like new things coming to market, kind of new aspects or different things that we should be on the lookout and see, different trends or anything like that happening?
Well, just something that it's not actually necessarily transactions that I've been involved in personally, but one thing that I've just sort of noticed in the past few weeks driving around LA is, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more reuses of industrial properties for industrial uses. So I noticed that there's just north of LAX, there's a former auto dealership that's now a little Amazon distribution center that,
wow.
They can, they're certainly not going to be able to store a huge amount because the building's not that big compared to most Amazon distribution centers, but it has a huge yard. So it's full of vans.
Mm.
Another thing that is happening in closer to the ports here in LA at the former Toyota headquarters in the city of Torrance. Toyota moved to Texas a few years ago, huge office campus. One of the, it was sold a few years ago to a developer that's tearing down office buildings, and because the demand isn't there for these office
right.
buildings, building brand new industrial buildings. And what surprised me is one of the buildings that they built was only, I think, about 10 years old. And I remember reading about it in the LA Times that it was this brand new, super green, high-tech building. So I just thought, well, if they're going to tear one down, they tear down one of the, older buildings, but they actually tore down the best one. And that's just a statement of how strong industrial is compared to office.
That's incredible.
So I never saw that before in my career. Nice new office buildings being torn down for industrial rebuild.
Wow.
It's because it's right there in the, center of the population. So they're ideal e-commerce, hubs.
That's right. I mean, they say that's, the three most important things in real estate, right?
Yes. Yeah. That actually, the location, it didn't used to be such a big deal in industrial, right? But location was important, but location used to mean within, 20 miles or 30 miles. Like there wasn't this very, very close to the customer focus. So
that's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, and it really, obviously it does depend. There are different things, but one thing that I've seen come up quite a bit, and I don't know if you've seen this, but I actually have a couple of friends that are involved in these, industrial, really in distribution of food, of ready food, meaning like restaurants. I don't know exactly what they're called, but like e-kitchens or things like that, similar where, you may be ordering, online food and it's not coming from a restaurant. It's not coming from a fast food. It's coming from a warehouse, or a similar place where they're just, mass producing this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Those guys are certainly very active. They're not necessarily a huge mover in the market because they don't require they don't require the size of an Amazon facility.
Correct.
Right? Those are going to be more sort of in the 50,000 square foot, maybe up to 100,000 square foot facility. The big bombers like Amazon or Target, those guys are taking down million square footers now. Right. So they're not driving the market quite as much, but they're definitely a force and they're very strong.
Yeah. And I see that happen, just continuing that trend of these things popping up.
Yeah. The other one that was like the hottest trend about 5 years ago, everybody couldn't stop talking about it, seems to maybe have cooled just a little bit, was the advent of multi-story warehouses. So I think there's one in Brooklyn that went up a couple of years ago. I know that there's one in Seattle that Amazon ended up taking that I toured. It seems like that's cooled a little bit. I just don't hear it. I think that the construction cost is too prohibitive. Mm-hmm. So, we haven't seen that in LA yet. It hasn't penciled yet. But that was something that when e-commerce really took off, that was, kind of the hot buzz conversation within the industrial world.
For sure.
Because that's a thing that exists now in other countries, in Japan and such, where they have such land constraints. It's they're very common. Yeah. Just not yet. So
you can't build out.
It hasn't taken. You would, this Toyota building is a perfect example. It's right there in the middle of the market and in the population, and yet they built, single story, not multi-story buildings.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it's going to change the landscape quite a bit also. I mean, you see that happening more and more, especially if office has less demand.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't speak to the office world, what's going to happen there, but I just am very happy that I'm an industrial focused guy. That's all I can say.
Good for you. Yeah. And that's awesome. It's good to be on the winning team, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But even if I didn't have anything to do with it, I'll take it. Be happy with your lot in life.
Oh, good for you. Are you doing any investing as well, or you're simply on the brokerage side?
I am strictly on the broker side. I mean, a little bit for personal, and it got a little bit of stock in some of the larger players in my own field that I feel confident in backing. But strictly on the brokerage side as far as my main focus.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. So I'd love to transition now to what we call the final four. These are 4 questions I ask all my guests, and I'd love to hear from you. What's the worst job that you ever had?
Well, let me tell you this. I was it's funny. People, some people have no idea how you can have a job like mine where you're a commissioned only salesperson, and part of it for me is I think I grew up when I was in college, I had every single tip job that you could possibly imagine. So I was a valet parker. I was a bellman. I was a pedicab driver in San Diego. But I was a busboy in San Francisco at a restaurant, and I would put in a full shift, and I would go to the tip jar, and my cut would be about $1 or $1.50. And I lasted about a week and a half in that. And the manager felt that I was, he could see the disappointment in my face. He said, I don't think this is the right job for you. So I don't know. I kind of usually feel like that one that was the winner.
Oh, wow. We actually just had someone recently also said a busboy was his worst job. That was.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my friend, it was at a really nice hotel. My friend I was in a cafeteria, and then he was in the next restaurant over. And that's part of what made my days so disappointing is he'd leave with $100 or something, same shift, because that was the nice restaurant. Right. So yeah, I'm like, and he rubbed it in. He'd have a big smile on his face because, of course, in the late '80s, $100 a day was something to be happy about. Nowadays, you get lunch.
Nowadays, right? You pay for parking. That's funny. Okay, so second question we have is, what is a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Hands down, the book, The One Thing, really changed things for me. I think Keller is the author. I'm embarrassed now because I forget his first name.
Yeah, right.
He's from Keller Williams, the real estate company. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing was, so it goes back to what I was talking about, the 80-20 rule. And I loved how simple it was in explaining that you can keep refining, you can keep taking the 80-20 rule, the next step, until you end up with one thing. What's the 80-20 of most of your day in terms of where you make your money? And then amongst that 20%, what's the 80-20 of that? And the easiest thing for me of all was that the example used in the book for what the author discovered that he needed to do for his own business to grow it to the next level was exactly the same for mine. And that was to build a team. So when I read the book, I was actually, at the time, I was still, I would partner up on different transactions with lots of different people within my company, but I didn't have my own formal team. And so then I realized that, that's it. I have to stop what I'm doing, even if it means letting opportunities go by, look at the bigger picture that's more important, and just focus on building a team. And I did that. And now this is, 4 years later, and it's really, really kicked in and really made a big difference in my business.
That's awesome. Yeah. I actually recently finished that one also, The One Thing. And you're absolutely right. It's incredible when you can find that laser focus. And a lot of it has to do with building a team. So I'm struggling myself right now with that, and trying to outsource different things and with my own business, and finding it's working little by little. So
what did you find was your one thing?
I don't know if I have a one thing. That's the thing. I didn't find it. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's an ongoing search. Mine, I suppose, is going to change now that I have the team underway. So now I gotta reread it and start over again.
Yeah, exactly. And it will change from time to time, right? Your different focus in life changes as you change.
Yeah.
Amazing. So we'll make sure to put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to check out The One Thing by, I believe, Gary Keller.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. So third question, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
Well, based on the bumps in the road that we hit, I would like to, when we were trying to start your podcast here, I'd like to get more technical. I have a lot. It's actually in better at sort of, Zoom calls and camera work and such. I've actually had a lot of fun with it since COVID hit. It was never anything that I ever thought about before. Mm-hmm. And so I have fun doing it. So I have behind me is a green screen, which is a new addition to my collection. And I'm just sort of, I want to get better at it for sure.
Yeah. You're taking the first step on being on a podcast because you're
my first. Breaking me in, my man.
That's great. I've actually been the first for quite a few people. So that's fun.
Wow.
It's fun for me. I ease people into it, right? If this is fun, this is easy. It's not.
Yeah. No, you are. You're very easy to speak with. Thank you so much. Seriously.
I appreciate it. So, fourth and final question is going to be: what does success mean to you?
Success to me really means for what I do, it's very challenging to sort of, track success, track progress. And because, I can meet a client and finish a transaction in 60 days. It's not very common. Some of them I've met in transactions that concluded in 30, but most of them are, sort of 9 months plus. Some of the clients that I'll meet and I won't do transaction with them for 3 years or 4 years or so. It can be very long. So how do you track your day-to-day? How do you track the feeling of success? For me, success is about feeling effective. It's about feeling like I went into work today. I accomplished something that's going to help me, not today, but I can feel that it's going to help me down the road and it's going to lay down a path for success. So, it's one thing in our business is, when you finish a transaction, it's fun. You get a nice buzz of feeling some success, but then what? Then you have to start it all over. So to me, much more important in terms of measuring success is day to day. Do I feel effective? Do I feel like I'm getting something done? I'm not spending time on a bunch of, not very lucrative paper pushing or frustrating, breakdowns and kind of, operations around the office. It's about making important calls. It's about doing things that are going to lead to true success down the road. That's what I measure as success.
That's great. And I think a lot of people, especially anyone who's in sales, which is most everyone to a certain extent or another, it's not about closing the deal. I mean, that's fun, but there's so much more that goes into it. And, that process is really where you can track that success. So that's a great kind of perspective to it.
I've heard a lot of real experts on success and happiness recently. The one thing that the constant theme I keep hearing is if you say, oh, I'm not going to be happy until I accomplish this goal. I'm not going to be whatever the goal is. If you're a musician, you got to get a stadium tour, whatever. If that's your only, no one ever is happier when they achieve that.
Right.
Because they get there and they go, wow, this is I'm still the same person, whatever problems I have or whatever issues I'm still here. You got to enjoy the path. So that's what the path to getting there is the challenge and the fun and the success. So that's how I look at my day to day.
Beautiful. Chuck, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Well, I'm at Colliers in Los Angeles, so I'm pretty easy to find on the web. I'm not sure what else am I supposed to give out my cell phone number here, but
whatever you want. We already have your.
I'm on LinkedIn. My last name is Littell, and I'd love to help if anybody has any questions or anything that I can do in terms of giving some guidance on what's going on in the industrial real estate world.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure this is just going to springboard. If you enjoyed this, you're going to get on many more podcasts. And if you're a podcaster listening to this, you got a great new guest. So reach out to Chuck. And thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Yona. It was a real pleasure. Talk to you soon.
And to all of our listeners, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.